Trump has taken aim at globalization before, but back in 2016, when he was first inaugurated as president, his war was notably held back. New to his office and politics in general, he was constantly hamstrung by a political machine evolved entirely around the basis of globalization. And with a very slim majority in the House and the Senate, and many Republicans who really wished Trump had never run for president in the first place, he was simply unable to have the change he really desired. This time around, Trump is in a far stronger position. He understands the political systems as well as anyone and intends on moving incredibly quickly, which is perfectly characterized by his signing of 54 executive orders within just 2 weeks of being inaugurated. Now, Trump is directly taking aim against globalization once more, seeking to strengthen Americans' economy and stability, and one of the key areas he needs to institute some massive change is in the commodity market. Domestic production is the name of the game, and the left's attacks on this industry are going to be reversed and replaced with loose regulation and plenty of political support, whilst China and the rest of the world sees a harsh awakening to the reality of exporting to the States. And make sure to watch this video all the way to the end, because I'll show you a company that owns a copper, gold, silver project in Nevada, and its stock price cratered 92% during Biden's term, but has no debt and has just drilled its best ever hole. Now, globalization has been great for some countries like China, and it's been incredibly destructive for others like the US. Take oil, for example. The US produces more oil than any other country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran or Iraq or Kuwait or Qatar, and the US has the resources to outproduce all those countries together if it really wanted to. And on top of that, the US leads the world in the quality of its oil as well, being by and large easy to refine and high quality, especially when compared to other nations' oil like China or Russia. Yet for the last few decades, the US has found itself importing oil every single year simply to meet its needs. This isn't due to anything natural, but really because of awful politicians. The Green Lobby has successfully led a war on increasing the production of fossil fuels to the point where the US is buying oil from other countries which pollute the environment more and cost more to refine and get a hold of purely because it feels greener. It isn't greener though, it's worse for the environment, but those emissions are coming from a different country, so the Green Lobby pat themselves on the back and congratulate themselves for a job well done. But far from just costing the US more to exist and do more damage to the environment, this disastrous policy has put the US on the back when it comes to protecting their interests. Importing oil from China, Russia, Venezuela, Iran or Iraq or any other country gives the US's opponents leverage over them, and the lack of American exports of oil to friendly nations like the UK or Germany puts them in a difficult position when it comes to standing up to them as well. And the result of all that? Weak foreign policy, presidents and politicians who are afraid to put America first because they rely on oil from their enemies. Take a look at natural gas and we see the exact same thing happening all over again. The US produces more than Russia, China, Iran, Canada or any other country in the world, yet still every year they find themselves importing just to meet their own needs. Copper, it's the same story. The US has the reserves to fulfill itself purely domestically, but it doesn't. Steel, the same again. And frankly, this is the case with almost all commodities. The short-sightedness of this policy is ridiculous and impossible to over-exaggerate, and it's one of the key reasons Trump is so firm on his aim to strengthen American supply chains and detach the US from its reliance on its enemies. So how is he going to fix this problem? Well, regulation and deregulation. Regulation against importing these materials that simply don't need to be imported in the form of tariffs, and deregulation for the domestic production of them as well. When Trump places a blanket tariff on importing anything from China, yes, it will cause costs to rise in the short term. Production takes time to increase, but in the long term, it will end the ability of OPEC to jack up the prices of oil, not only in the US, but worldwide as well, and will lead to more stable prices and lower prices. And slashing regulation is key to this as well. Reducing the number of hoops that a company has to jump through will allow them to get production up and running quicker and cause the cost to extra resources to go down as well. Of course, the rest of the world won't sit by and just watch this happen. Saudi Arabia has done incredibly well over the last few decades, leveraging the soft power that their oil exports give them, and seeing this soft power fall would be a disaster for them. Russia's huge level of exports to Europe made their invasion of Ukraine 10 times more palatable for their economy, and it meant Europe wasn't willing to take a strong enough stance against them until the US started placing immense pressure on Europe to adopt that hardline position at their own expense. China has already come out swinging, targeting the US with tariffs of their own in response to those ordered by Trump. But frankly, their response was very specifically curated to not be seen as an escalation, because they're still desperately hoping for some kind of deal to be worked out. And China has expanded its export controls for minerals essential for high-tech industries. Exporters of those minerals and of goods manufactured from them have to ask for a license from the Communist Party directly, and sending those materials overseas to enemies like the US is going to get incredibly difficult. Some specific American companies, have already been added to an unreliable entity list, which makes it nearly impossible for any Chinese business to work with them at all. And as Trump pushes forward with this plan, the rest of the world is going to have to ask themselves some very hard questions. Is Europe going to continue to destroy their own economy following that weird idea that they can impact climate change and protect the environment? Is Canada going to rely so heavily on foreign powers for the resources and goods that they need to survive, or are they going to abandon globalization as well and adopt a policy that actually puts themselves first? Companies all over the world are already thinking this through and making their decisions, bringing production closer to home or at least away from those countries whose governments actively hate them. And well, that's not surprising because for businesses, their money is always at stake. I'd be lying if I said that I hadn't been looking around at moving my business to the US because there's a very real risk I'll get hit with tariffs when I work with American clients. Now, Trump is president and his stated goal is to drill, baby, drill, unlocking America's vast riches. In February of 2021, right after Joe Biden took office, the market cap of giant mining was around 100 million USD. Yet today, giant mining has a market cap of $16 million after plummeting 84%. And just a few days ago, Trump told House Republicans that he plans to put tariffs on aluminium, steel, and copper. In a speech on the 27th of January, just a couple of weeks ago, Trump said he would impose tariffs on aluminium and copper, metals needed to produce US military hardware, as well as steel to entice producers to make them in the United States.
But I'll also be placing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper, and things that we need for our military. We have to bring production back to our country. You know, there was a time when we made one ship a day, and now we can't build a ship. We don't know what the hell we're doing. It's all gone to other locations and other lands. And to further return production to the United States, we're going to environmentally free up our rare earth minerals. We have some unbelievable sites. We have some of the best rare earth anywhere in the world, but we're not allowed to use it because the environmentalists got there first. They said, you cannot touch that land. I look at the land, it looks like every other piece of land. What is it? Well, this is very protected. They have no idea what they're doing to our country. They use the environment to stop progress, so we're not going to let that happen.
So Trump is announcing tariffs on steel, aluminium, and copper is a critical mineral. Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF, is sponsoring today's video, and I want to show you why the same company that owns a copper, silver, gold project in the state of Nevada is 84% cheaper than in 2021, even after hitting its best ever drill intercepts in September. On November 15th, a major bill passed the House of Representatives. It's called the Critical Mining Consistency Act, and it will go to the Senate next. Arizona Congressman Juan Ciscomani said critical minerals are essential for our economy. The United States must ensure access to a reliable supply. Ciscomani, the sponsor of this legislation, explains that the goal is to fortify commodities logistics domestically and include copper, electrical steel, silicon, and silicon carbide on the critical minerals list. Copper Development Association CEO Adam Estelle said this vote highlights copper's essential role in powering America's energy future. The legislation specifically ensures copper mine projects are eligible for the Fast 41 permitting process. Now, Giant Mining owns a copper project in the world's #1 mining jurisdiction, Nevada, in the USA. In the past 4 years, management and the company's geologists have actually expanded the copper deposit, and this past September, Giant Mining hit their best ever drill hole. BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto, two of the largest copper producers in the world, are warning that copper supply cannot possibly meet the future demand from artificial intelligence and the construction renaissance in the US and China. Meanwhile, the share price of Giant Mining, whose flagship copper silver gold project in Nevada is called Majuba Hill, has depreciated from $4.20 on January the 13th, 2023 to only 30 cents today. Historic underground mines at the Majuba Hill project produced copper, tin, and silver from the early 1900s to the 1950s, including 2.8 million pounds of copper, 184,000 ounces of silver, 5,800 ounces of gold, and 21,000 pounds of tin. Now, I will say this again, all of these factors and the following ones below are the ones that led to my significant bullish opinion about Giant Mining. The infrastructure is ready. Access roads, power supply, transportation, water supply, ore stockpiles, processing space, and a processing plant. Preliminary discussions with the Trump team shows they want to bring back to the United States the defense industrial supply chain through tariffs on steel, iron, aluminium, and copper. Giant Mining just hit their highest grade hole to date, from surface down to 218 feet, surface high grade at Majuba with 74 feet of 2.6% copper and 30.1 grams per ton of silver, within 218 feet of 1.35% copper and 73.4 grams per ton of silver. The Majuba Hill copper, gold, silver project is situated right in Nevada, and so when I combine all of this, a pro-business administration, the new minerals legislation to include copper as critical, the looming supply shortage, and the fact that Giant Mining's share price is already up 100% since Trump's inauguration, I am ultra bullish on this company.